Are you thinking about a small farm, homestead, or estate, and you've been dreaming about it in your mind about the beautiful landscape, the beautiful farm, the market garden, the animals, the country house, and all of those details, yet you don't yet realize this in your own life? Well, listen carefully. I'm going to share with you today how to plan your family farm, homestead, or estate. Hi, I'm Justin Hitt with Prosperity Homestead. So we're just going to call it a farm. Many estates, which could be a large manor house, they tend to have farming and agricultural elements. And then, of course, a small farm is a farm, even though it might have fewer acreage, or even your homestead might have agricultural elements. The key to understanding this is whether you have 5 acres, 10 acres, or 200 acres, planning your farm out saves you so many problems and hassles. One of the reasons why you don't already have your small farm, homestead, or estate, or maybe you have a pile of projects waiting, is because you don't have a clear plan and prioritization for each of these projects. I know it's exciting to look at land and to dream about that one day when you retire, you're going to buy this land and you're going to move out to the country and you're going to enjoy the country life. Well, what if you could start doing that today? COVID has proved to us that people can work from pretty much anywhere in the world. There's satellite systems available today to deliver high-speed internet. There are ways to do types of jobs such as writing or even small businesses without consistent internet access. And you can even have an income from your farm property. There are a number of different ways, and we've talked about them in other programs, to generate income from your land. But none of this is possible if you don't plan out your system, plan out your farm. Now, I said system, and that's going to be very important here in a little bit. But what happens if you don't have a plan? Well, first off, you're going to struggle and you're going to find it difficult to get the funding for your project. I know you're thinking to go out to the bank and get a loan. But what if your customers could pay for your land? See, these large estates and these chateaus in France, at one time, they were owned by wealthy families, but over time, estate taxes and other types of laws caused those properties to get divided up. So originally, what would happen is one of these large family homes would be owned by a company or it would be owned by a single individual who worked out business arrangements or family arrangements through a family office that other family members could use the property. So one person was trained to manage the property and the rest of the family could come and use the property as part of that legacy. Well, when the government saw that, they saw an opportunity for taxing because many farms are worth far more on paper than they are physically. So let's say you buy 10 acres at $10,000 an acre. Well, that's $100,000. And you might say, well, that's what my farm is worth. Well, no, that's what the land is worth and what you bought the land for. But once you start adding agricultural activity, you now have the revenue of your business, the valuation of your business. You have the market garden. You have the value of livestock and seed. You have a lot of categories that have increased the value of the land. And if that farm is profitable, that $100,000 in land could be underlying $1 million plus business valuation. Now, again, it doesn't mean that you've got $1 million in your pocket. It just means that the activities on that land make it overall worth $1 million, and it may get taxed that way. It may have a valuation if you're going to sell the farm or the business or the home. For example, we're looking at for a client a $40,000 for 24 acres. Now, it's rare to find these deals, but we've managed to find this particular deal. But that land day one is worth $40,000. But how much do you think the land is worth after we put a house on it? See, you've got to plan for these things because it's going to increase in taxes. You're going to have the cost of the home, and you're going to need to build the home before you can do other things with it. Or that's what you might think. See, all these ideas you have about what you want to do with your land, each of those can be a small project, and each of those projects can be on paper, or one single sheet of paper can be tested to determine what's worth doing first. See, you can buy a piece of land. If it's near your residence, you can actually start your market garden on it. You could actually put up your fencing before you have a home site available. If you have cattle, very often you can lease land rather than actually buying land for your cattle or participate in a cooperative. So make a list of those things that you want to do with your land. That's the start of your plan. It actually doesn't even matter if you have land. It doesn't even matter if you're still searching for land. If you make a list of what you want to do with the land and then digest that list into different types of projects. Now, when I said systems earlier, I meant the interconnection of these projects. So, for example, if you have a market garden, you're going to have vegetables. And then you say, well, you know, it'd be nice to have chickens as well. Great. Do you need to have a separate area for the chickens and a separate area for your market garden? Well, not necessarily. You can have a large enclosure that has separation areas or paddocks, like a victory garden. You can have a large rectangular enclosure and your chicken coop is in the middle. And you can garden on one side and then let the chickens out to till and get bugs and eat the extra weed seeds while you're gardening on the other side, and then just keep switching back and forth. You can have a multi-paddock system with chicken coop in the middle, or the chicken coop rotates through paddocks on your larger garden. Now, the reason I describe this for you is because some people might say, well, I'm going to have a market garden and I'm going to need a tractor and I'm going to need a piece of this equipment and I'm going to need everything else. And then later they say, well, you know, I want chickens and then I'm going to need a chicken coop and a place to put the chickens. And before you know it, they're out of land. Because sometimes you might only be able to find 5 acres zoned the way you need it to be for the things that you want. So we have to know about stacking. This list of what you want to do becomes index cards of the outcome that you desire, then single page descriptions of the project. Now, what will happen here is you'll start finding these synergistic relationships. So, for example, if you want cattle and you've got the skills to manage cattle, you can have chickens follow the cattle. So, and what kind of chicken would you have? You know, all these categorizations you can go. So you saw this video with Joel Saliston, and he's got grass-raised cattle who are being followed by chickens to break pest cycles. And there's a chicken tractor, and there's the cows, and you're thinking, this is great. Turn that into a single-page plan where you can start assessing your own skills. Have you ever raised cows before? You can start looking for opportunities where you can start learning and investing in your education. You might also decide that maybe it's not cows and chickens that you want. It could be rabbits and chickens because you're ending up with less area. You can raise a lot of chickens and a lot of rabbits in 1 acre space in an ecologically sound and ecologically sound way. And in fact, you can probably grow all of their feed. And so if you say, well, maybe I can't start farming until I have 50 acres. Well, no, that's not the case. You can start where you're at today if zoning allows for it. And if zoning doesn't, then you need to know what zoning will work so you can find the right piece of property. You'll kind of have an idea what skill sets you're going to need. And you have it kind of in a notebook, easy to follow way. So your notebook will literally be 1-page descriptions of the types of things you want to do on your farm. And then as you start finding these synergies, you can start drawing out a plan. Now, I have in front of me here the contour lines and satellite photos of a piece of property. And I'm actually taking this client's list of things they want to do and superimposing it over this property. I've even gone as far as to pull the 2008 satellite photos so I can see where are the existing roads. You know, this property had young trees on it when I did a survey, and I want to know, well, have there ever been roads on this property before? How did people access this property? Well, I pulled the 2008 survey, and I can see that they clear-cut the trees at that time. And there are roads on the property. And then from the roads, I can say, okay, now that I have my access and I have an understanding where water is on the property, where would be my paddocks? Because this particular client wants to raise sheep. They may raise some heritage breed hogs. They're going to have rabbits and chickens as well. So what type of paddocks can I have here? Where will they be growing hay or straw? Where will they be growing their vegetable or market garden? Where are good sites for an orchard? So here in the Northern Hemisphere, a slope facing north is going to be better for orchard trees than a hill facing south. And that's because that allows us to get a little bit more, less likely to break frost early. And it's less likely to have the trees warm up and then cool off and lose their blossoms. So all these things come together and you start planning on paper and you start seeing how tangible your dreams can be and how possible it can be. Now you also want to look at the costs for each of your projects as if you did them by themselves. And then as you start seeing these synergistic relationships, you can start discounting the costs and getting to a more realistic number for your implementation. So the example I gave you with the Victory Garden, the large rectangular garden that has chickens in the middle, you do not need a tractor for that. You can literally use a hoe and the chickens, because when you let those chickens go at the end of the garden season, they will destroy everything and scratch, and that's just what chickens do. They will scratch. Same thing with small hogs. So if you can have the similar model with hogs. They get in there, they start rooting up everything, they turn the soil over, and then all you really need to do is go in there and mound up beds and put in starts at the next season. But you may want to have a large amount of straw available, because you may want to cover your beds with straw and to give you a more permanent raised bed. And then there are also options where if you had hogs, for example, you might use your hogs ahead of other animals to clear out wooded areas. So maybe next year, because you're going to take these projects and put them on a timeline, maybe next year you're going to have an orchard there, and you're going to run the hogs through it early to take down the small trees and to turn up the soil and level things out. Maybe you follow the hogs with goats to really just tear out those woods. And the next thing you know, you got a clearing area where you can start planting trees. Hogs are going to be great for getting up those rocks. And then the goats will be great for taking down those trees. And the next thing you know, you've got an area that's ready to take your trees. Now, we could talk about this for a long time. There are other methods. You can use what's called geographical information systems available from your county. You can get satellite pictures from your local extension office. Google Maps is a wonderful resource. In fact, if you have a question and you want to look at your property or a property that you're thinking about and go through a real-time analysis of the contours and an understanding of the water flow, we can do that in a webinar if you like. Just visit us at www.prosperityhomestead.org and be sure to ask your questions there. But I wanted to give you a taste, because if you go on year after year dreaming and desiring your small farm, homestead, or estate, and never conceptually get those things that you desire down on paper, then they're not likely to happen. You want to get these projects down on paper. You want to start trying them at the home that you live in today. You want to start investing in the right education to narrow your focus and understand the different areas. You want to start developing some specialities long before you're in the field. But also, I'd start identifying opportunities where maybe you can volunteer. It is possible today to have a small farm without owning the land. You can be working on someone else's farm. You can cooperate or collaborate through a cooperative. There's just so many options. So again, it's about getting your ideas down onto little index cards, the key benefit, the key outcome you desire, and then expanding those cards into one-page descriptions and just where are you going to get the resources, how much is it going to cost, what tools do you need, what resource, the kind of a project plan, and then start working these plans together to find the synergy so you can start something right now. If you're ready to start something right now, be sure to visit www.prosperityhomestead.org to ask your questions. I'm a permaculture design consultant, and I can help you with a design plan without actually showing up at your property to start. But more in-depth projects can significantly increase the value of your land. You can take horrible land and with the right plan, double, triple, quadruple the value of that land and really create a legacy. Turn your dreams into a reality and produce for yourself an abundance that can never be taken away. I want to thank you for listening. Again, I'm Justin Hitt with Prosperity Homestead. We're here to help small farms, homesteads, and estates increase the value and utility of their land while remaining ecologically sound with sustainable solutions. Thanks for listening.